Dawn broke over the NATO training facility, casting long shadows across the parade ground, where fresh recruits gathered for their first day of hell. A group of male cadets burst into laughter, pointing toward a small figure near the barracks entrance. She stood barely 5'3", wearing a faded gray t-shirt and worn-out boots that had seen better days. "Seriously, who let the janitor in?" The mocking voice cut through the morning air, followed by a chorus of cruel laughter that echoed off the concrete walls. She bent down to pick up her battered duffel bag, saying nothing, just tightening the frayed straps with calloused fingers. In the mess hall later, the tallest cadet deliberately knocked his tray into her, sending mashed potatoes sliding down her shirt. The entire room erupted in laughter phones, appearing to capture her humiliation. But she simply grabbed a napkin, wiped herself clean, and continued eating her breakfast in silence. This quiet response only fueled their amusement. They had no idea what was coming. Then fate shifted in a matter of minutes. During hand-to-hand combat training, her shirt tore, revealing something that shouldn't exist. A tattoo that made the entire training ground fall silent. The commander approached slowly, his face pale, whispering, "That mark, it's not supposed to exist." If you want to know why a simple tattoo could freeze an entire military base in its tracks, hit like and subscribe to HL Stories. You won't want to miss what happens next. Her name was Olivia Martinez, though nobody bothered to learn it during her first week at the facility. Everything about her screamed ordinary. Brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, no designer workout gear like the other female cadets. Her clothes looked like they'd been purchased at a thrift store, and her boots were military surplus that had clearly seen action somewhere, though nobody cared enough to ask where. "She won't last a week here," muttered Cadet Reynolds, a quarterback from Texas who'd arrived with letters of recommendation from 3 senators. "Look at her trying to fold that uniform. My little sister could do better." Madison Cross, the standout female cadet with perfect scores on every entrance exam, rolled her eyes as she watched Olivia struggle with her locker. Diversity quota right. Got to fill those numbers somehow. So she'd go to. The other recruits snickered already, forming their tight-knit groups, while Olivia remained on the outside, always alone, always quiet. During meals, she sat by herself, methodically eating whatever slop the kitchen served without complaint. When others gossiped or compared their civilian achievements, she remained silent, cleaning her gear with obsessive precision. But there were small details that didn't quite fit the narrative they'd created about her. Her hands, for instance. They bore the kind of calluses that came from years of hard work, but not the soft calluses of gym equipment or college sports. These were rough, scarred with a particular pattern along the knuckles that spoke of something more serious. When she cleaned her issued rifle, her movements were fluid, practiced, almost meditative. While other cadets fumbled with basic field stripping procedures, Olivia's weapon came apart and went back together with the kind of muscle memory that couldn't be faked. "Did you see how she handled that M4? Whispered Cadet Thompson to his bunkmate after weapons training. "Like she's done it 1,000 times before." "Nah, man," Reynolds laughed. "She probably watched YouTube videos. These civilian types always try to act tough the first week." But it wasn't just weapons handling. During their first navigation exercise, while other cadets stumbled around with compasses and maps arguing about grid coordinates and magnetic declination, Olivia moved through the course with quiet confidence. She never asked for help, never seemed lost, never displayed the confusion that marked the other recruits. Her bunk was always perfect, not with the nervous perfection of someone trying too hard, but with the casual efficiency of someone for whom military standards were second nature. Her boots were polished to a mirror shine, her gear arranged with mathematical precision, her uniforms pressed and ready before reveille even sounded. "She's trying too hard," Madison observed to her growing circle of admirers, "overcompensating for something. Probably never been away from mommy before." The harassment escalated during the second week. Someone put shaving cream in her boots. Her gear disappeared from the laundry. Food mysteriously fell on her during meals, always accompanied by fake apologies and barely suppressed laughter. Through it all, Olivia never responded, never complained, never reported the incidents to the drill instructors. She simply cleaned up, squared away her gear, and continued with her routine as if nothing had happened. "Why doesn't she fight back?" Thompson wondered aloud. "Even the weakest recruits usually snap by now." What they didn't understand was that Olivia wasn't weak. She wasn't overwhelmed or intimidated. She was simply operating on a different level entirely, one that her fellow cadets couldn't comprehend. Late at night, when the barracks finally quieted down and exhausted recruits fell into fitful sleep, Olivia would sit by the window staring out at the training fields with eyes that seemed to hold more experience than her apparent age should allow. Who was this woman who cleaned weapons like a professional, navigated like a scout, and endured harassment with the stoic patience of someone who'd faced much worse? The answer was written in ink beneath her shirt, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Week 3 brought the infamous Hell Week. 7 days designed to break the weak and forge the strong. The drill instructors had planned every torment 10-mile runs in full gear, low crawling through mud pits, setting up shelter systems in driving rain, and endless hours of physical training designed to push human endurance beyond its limits. "Today we separate the warriors from the wannabes," barked Sergeant Morrison, his voice carrying across the formation like thunder. "Some of you will quit, some of you will cry, some of you will discover what you're really made of. Shuri." The first casualty came during the run. Cadet Phillips, a former college track star, collapsed at mile 7, his breakfast painting the gravel road. 2 more dropped out during the obstacle course, unable to complete the rope climb after their arms gave out. But Olivia kept going. While other recruits gasped and wheezed, she maintained a steady pace, her breathing controlled and efficient. When they reached the mud pit crawl, she disappeared into the muck without hesitation, emerging on the other side, while others were still psyching themselves up for the plunge. "Look at little mouse go," Reynolds panted, trying to mask his surprise with sarcasm. "Bet she's loving this attention." Madison struggled with the weight of her pack, the straps cutting into her shoulders despite all her preparation. "She's just smaller, carries less weight. It's not fair." But fairness had nothing to do with it. During the weapons assembly drill conducted in darkness, with rain hammering the corrugated roof of the training shed, Olivia's rifle clicked together in 52 seconds flat. The next fastest time was over 2 minutes. "Impossible," muttered Instructor Rodriguez, checking his stopwatch. "Run it again." 51 seconds, then 49. The laughter had stopped. Whispered conversations began replacing the cruel jokes as recruits started to realize something didn't add up about the quiet woman they'd been tormenting. "Who is she?" Thompson asked his bunkmate after lights out. "Normal people don't move like that." The question hung in the air like smoke, unanswered but increasingly urgent. The breaking point came during combat training on Friday afternoon. The drill was simple hand-to-hand combat rotations, each cadet facing off against others in controlled sparring matches designed to teach basic self-defense techniques. "Martinez, you're up against Cadet Lance." Lance Corpenning was the golden boy of their training class. 6'2", 220 pounds of muscle earned through years of high school wrestling and college football. He'd been recruited specifically for special operations, training his file thick with commendations and athletic achievements. "Try not to hurt her too bad," Reynolds called out, earning chuckles from the crowd of spectators. Olivia stepped onto the mat without expression, taking her stance with the same quiet efficiency she brought to everything else. Lance bounced on his toes, all confidence and swagger, clearly seeing this as an easy victory. "Don't worry, sweetheart," he grinned, raising his hands. "I'll go easy on you." The match began with Lance charging forward, using his size advantage to drive Olivia back toward the wall. The crowd cheered, anticipating a quick finish to this obvious mismatch. But something was wrong. Olivia didn't fight his advance. She guided it, redirecting his momentum with subtle shifts that sent him stumbling past her. When he grabbed for her shirt to establish control, she moved like water flowing around his grip while simultaneously striking pressure points that made his arms go momentarily numb. "What the hell?" Lance snarled, his confidence evaporating as he found himself off balance and empty-handed. He lunged again, this time with real aggression, intent on using his weight to pin her against the concrete wall. His hands found purchase on her shirt, gripping the fabric as he drove forward with all his strength. The sound of tearing cloth cut through the afternoon air like a blade. Olivia's gray t-shirt split down the back, the worn fabric finally giving way under the strain of Lance's desperate grip. She spun away from the wall, ready to continue the match, but something had changed in the atmosphere around them. The laughter died instantly. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the drill instructors fell silent, their attention focused on something that shouldn't exist. Across Olivia's shoulder blades rendered in deep black ink that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect. It was a tattoo that made hardened soldiers take involuntary steps backward. A serpent coiled around a human skull, its eyes seeming to glow with malevolent intelligence. But it wasn't the imagery that froze everyone in place. It was what the symbol represented. Holy shit! Madison whispered, her phone slipping from nerveless fingers to clatter on the concrete. What the hell is that thing? Lance stumbled backward, his face pale with sudden understanding. He'd seen that mark before in classified briefings that carried death sentences for unauthorized disclosure. The Ghost Viper insignia, a mark that belonged to operators who officially didn't exist, soldiers whose missions were so classified they were erased from all records after completion. Legend said only 12 people in the world had earned the right to wear that symbol. 11 were confirmed dead. Commander Patterson pushed through the crowd of stunned recruits, his weathered face the color of old ash, his hands trembling as he approached the woman they'd been calling weak. "Who gave you the right to wear that mark?" he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia met his gaze without flinching, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who'd faced death and walked away. "I didn't ask for it, sir. It was given to me." The silence stretched across the training ground like a held breath broken only by the distant sound of helicopters conducting flight exercises beyond the perimeter. Commander Patterson stared at the tattoo with the expression of a man confronting a ghost. His hands, steady through 30 years of military service and 3 combat deployments, shook as he reached for his radio. "All training exercises are suspended," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Everyone except Martinez is dismissed. Return to barracks immediately." "Sir, I don't understand." Madison stammered, her usual confidence completely shattered. "What's happening? What is that symbol?" Patterson's eyes never left Olivia's tattoo. "That symbol belongs to Ghost Viper Cadet Cross, a unit that doesn't exist in any official capacity, a unit whose members are hand-selected from the absolute elite of Special Operations Forces worldwide." Lance backed away slowly, his earlier aggression replaced by something approaching terror. "But she can't be." "Can't be what?" Patterson turned to face the assembled recruits, his weathered features hard as granite. "Can't be one of the most dangerous human beings on the planet. Can't be someone who's completed missions that would give you nightmares for the rest of your life." He walked closer to Olivia, studying the intricate details of the tattoo that seemed to shift and move in the changing light. The serpent's coils appeared to tighten around the skull, its fangs dripping with ink that looked almost wet. "How many?" Patterson asked quietly. "Classified," Olivia replied, her voice emotionless. "How many missions?" "Classified. How many targets eliminated?" For the first time since arriving at the facility, something flickered in Olivia's dark eyes. Pain, perhaps, or regret. "Classified, sir." Patterson nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. He'd seen that look before in the eyes of operators who'd done things that couldn't be discussed, couldn't be acknowledged, couldn't be forgotten. The Ghost Viper program was terminated 18 months ago, he said, speaking as much to himself as to the stunned recruits. All members were listed as killed in action during a classified operation in Eastern Europe. The files were sealed, the unit disbanded, the very existence of the program was erased from military records. Reynolds found his voice first. "Then how is she here? How is she alive?" Patterson studied Olivia's face, searching for answers in features that revealed nothing. "That's an excellent question, Cadet Reynolds. How are you alive, Martinez?" Olivia was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on something beyond the training ground, beyond the base, beyond the present moment. When she finally spoke, her words carried the weight of memories that most people couldn't comprehend. "The operation went wrong," she said simply. "We were sent to eliminate a high-value target in a compound near the Ukrainian border. Intelligence said minimal security, quick in and out. But it was a trap." The recruits leaned closer, despite themselves drawn into a story they weren't cleared to hear, but couldn't resist. 12 operators went in, 11 died in the first 30 minutes. I was the only one who made it out. How? Madison whispered. Olivia's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Because I wasn't there to eliminate the target. I was there to die with the rest of my team. The whole operation was designed to eliminate Ghost Viper permanently, to tie up loose ends that had become inconvenient. The revelation hit Patterson like a physical blow. You're saying your own command structure set you up. I'm saying that when you know too much about too many classified operations, when you've seen the faces behind decisions that can't be acknowledged publicly, when you become a liability instead of an asset. She shrugged the gesture, carrying years of betrayal and loss. Sometimes the best solution is to make sure everyone with that knowledge disappears permanently. But you survived. I survived because I'd been expecting it. Because when you've spent years in the shadow world, you learn to read the signs. The rushed timeline, the inadequate intelligence, the team composition that put all the Ghost Viper operatives in one place at one time. Her eyes found Patterson's. I went in knowing it was a suicide mission. The difference was I planned to come out alive. The weight of her words settled over the group like a shroud. These recruits who thought military service was about honor and country and brotherhood were confronting the reality that some operations existed in moral gray areas where loyalty could be purchased and soldiers could be discarded. So you faked your death, Patterson said, understanding dawning in his expression. I completed the mission, eliminated the target, destroyed the compound, made sure the official objectives were achieved. But I also made sure the explosion looked like it had killed everyone inside, including me. As far as the world knows, Olivia Martinez died in that bunker along with her teammates. Then who are you now? For the first time since the confrontation began, Olivia smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. I'm nobody special, sir. Just another recruit trying to serve her country, trying to find a way to use skills I never wanted in service of something that might actually matter. Patterson stared at her for a long moment, processing the implications of having a supposedly dead black ops operator in his training program. And you thought you could just blend in, pretend to be a regular recruit. I thought I could hide in plain sight until I figured out what comes next. I thought I could serve quietly, maybe train the next generation without anyone asking too many questions. She glanced at her torn shirt, at the tattoo that had destroyed her careful anonymity. I thought wrong. The sound of approaching vehicles interrupted the conversation. Military police, Patterson realized. Someone had made the calls that would turn this training exercise into a classified incident. What happens now? Reynolds asked nervously. Patterson looked at Olivia, seeing not the quiet recruit they dismissed and tormented, but the lethal operator she'd always been. Now, he said quietly, everything changes. The transformation was immediate and absolute. Word spread through the base with the speed of wildfire, carried by whispered conversations in mess halls, hurried phone calls to commanding officers, and encrypted messages that disappeared into classified channels faster than they could be intercepted. Within hours, everyone at the facility knew the truth about the quiet woman they'd been tormenting for 3 weeks. Madison Cross sat on her bunk, staring at her phone screen, where she'd started to upload the video of Olivia's humiliation during combat training. Her finger hovered over the delete button, trembling slightly as the reality of what she'd almost done crashed over her. I was going to post this, she whispered to her roommate. I was going to put a Ghost Viper operative on social media for laughs. The thought of what might have happened, of the attention such a video could have attracted, made her physically sick. She deleted the file and every other photo she'd taken of Olivia, then threw her phone into her locker as if it were contaminated. Lance Corpening couldn't stop replaying the moment when his hands had gripped her shirt, when he'd used his full strength against someone he'd thought was weak and helpless. The memory of her effortless counter movements, the way she'd guided his attack rather than resisting it, took on terrifying new meaning. She was playing with me, he muttered to Reynolds, who was pacing their shared room like a caged animal. The whole time she was just playing. She could have killed me with her bare hands. Reynolds nodded frantically. Did you see her face when Patterson asked about her kill count? There was something in her eyes, man. Something cold. We need to apologize, Lance said suddenly. We need to make this right. Are you insane? Reynolds grabbed his arm. You don't apologize to someone like that. You stay as far away as possible and pray they don't hold grudges. But some recruits couldn't stay away. Thompson found himself drawn to the barracks area where Olivia had been temporarily relocated while security officers conducted their investigation. He approached slowly, hands visible, moving like someone approaching a dangerous animal. "Ma'am," he called softly. Olivia looked up from where she sat on her bunk, methodically cleaning the same piece of gear she'd been working on for the past hour. Her eyes held none of the warmth or vulnerability the recruits had grown accustomed to dismissing. "I wanted to say—" Thompson swallowed hard, struggling to find words that didn't sound pathetic or self-serving. "I wanted to say that we were wrong about everything, and I'm sorry." Olivia studied his face for a long moment, as if evaluating the sincerity of his words against some internal measuring stick that had been calibrated by years of deception and betrayal. "You didn't know," she said finally, her voice neither accepting nor rejecting his apology. "That was the point." "But we should have known," Thompson pressed on, desperate to make some kind of connection with this woman who'd become a living legend overnight. "The way you moved, the way you handled weapons, the way you never broke no matter what we did to you. We should have seen it." "Why?" Olivia asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Because you think elite operators look a certain way. Because you've watched too many movies where the heroes are 6 feet tall and covered in muscles." Thompson flushed with embarrassment. "I guess. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. The best operators are the ones you never suspect," Olivia explained patiently, as if teaching a lesson to a child. "We're the ones who blend in, who look ordinary, who can walk through a crowd without anyone remembering our faces. The moment you start looking like a stereotype, you become useless for real work." Other recruits began gathering at a respectful distance, drawn by the first normal conversation anyone had heard from Olivia since her identity was revealed. "Will you teach us?" Madison asked suddenly, her earlier arrogance completely gone. "I mean, if they let you stay, will you teach us what you know?" Olivia looked at the group of young faces surrounding her, seeing past their earlier cruelty to the potential that lay beneath their inexperience. "That depends," she said quietly, "on whether you're ready to learn what it really means to serve." 3 months later, Forward Operating Base Echo had become something unprecedented in military training history. Officially, nothing had changed. The same drills, the same instructors, the same graduation requirements. But unofficially, everyone knew that the most dangerous person on base was a quiet woman who still cleaned her gear every night and rarely spoke unless directly addressed. Olivia had been cleared to complete her training after a series of classified interviews with intelligence officials who'd flown in from locations that didn't appear on any public maps. The official story was that her records had been mixed up with those of a deceased operator, a clerical error that had been quietly corrected. The truth was more complex, involving backroom negotiations, sealed agreements, and the recognition that having a Ghost Viper operative in the regular training pipeline could provide unprecedented value to national security. "She's not here to be trained," Commander Patterson had explained to his senior staff during a briefing that would never appear in any official records. "She's here to identify potential recruits for programs that don't officially exist, to evaluate candidates for capabilities that can't be tested through normal means." The recruits themselves sensed the change without understanding its full implications. Training exercises became more sophisticated, more realistic, more focused on the kind of real-world scenarios that most military personnel never encountered. Hand-to-hand combat evolved from basic self-defense to advanced close-quarters battle techniques. Weapons training expanded beyond standard service rifles to include exotic systems that weren't listed in any manual. And through it all, Olivia watched and evaluated, her dark eyes missing nothing, as she identified which recruits possessed the rare combination of skills, temperament, and moral flexibility that special operations required. "She's making a list," Madison confided to Thompson during evening chow. "I can feel her watching us, judging us, deciding who's worth investing in and who's just going to be regular Army." Madison was right, though she couldn't know the full scope of what Olivia was evaluating. Physical capability was only one factor. Intelligence, creativity, adaptability under stress, loyalty, and the ability to function in moral gray areas were all part of a complex calculus that would determine which recruits received certain opportunities after graduation. Lance had thrown himself into training with an intensity that bordered on obsession, driven by a desperate need to prove himself worthy of the respect he'd failed to show Olivia during those early weeks. His progress was remarkable, his dedication absolute, but Olivia's assessment remained unreadable. "She'll never forgive me for what I did," he confided to his reflection in the bathroom mirror, staring at knuckles that were permanently scarred from months of brutal training. "I put my hands on her. I tried to humiliate her in front of everyone. Why would she ever trust someone like me with real responsibility?" But forgiveness and trust operated differently in Olivia's world. She'd seen good people make terrible decisions under pressure, and she'd seen terrible people rise to become heroes when circumstances demanded it. Character wasn't fixed. It was forged through choices made in critical moments. The legend grew beyond the base boundaries carried by instructors who rotated to other facilities, by visiting officers who witnessed the unprecedented level of performance emerging from Echo Company, by rumors that spread through classified channels like viral infections. The ghost cadet, they called her, though never within earshot. Stories multiplied and evolved, with each retelling impossible shots made during live-fire exercises, hand-to-hand demonstrations that left seasoned instructors questioning everything they thought they knew about combat. Psychological evaluations that revealed depths of experience that shouldn't exist in someone her apparent age. Recruits from other programs began requesting transfers to Echo Company, drawn by whispers of advanced training opportunities and the chance to serve alongside a living legend. The applications were routinely denied, but the mystique continued to grow. Late at night, when most of the base slept, Olivia would walk the perimeter fence, her movements silent and purposeful, as she conducted security assessments that had nothing to do with her official duties and everything to do with habits that had kept her alive through missions she could never discuss. Sometimes other recruits would spot her silhouette against the starlit sky, a solitary figure maintaining vigilance over a community that had once rejected her. They would watch from their windows, wondering about the thoughts that occupied the mind of someone who'd officially died defending her country and been reborn as their anonymous guardian. The ghost cadet had become more than just a person. She'd become a symbol of hidden strength, of the power that lay dormant in the most unlikely places, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. 2 years after graduation, Echo Company had produced more special operations candidates than any training facility in military history. The official reports credited improved curriculum and advanced training methodologies. The truth was simpler: they'd had the best teacher in the world, even if most of them never realized it. Olivia Martinez completed her second enlistment, quietly disappearing back into whatever shadows had sheltered her between her official death and her arrival at the training facility. But her influence remained embedded in the soldiers she'd secretly evaluated, trained, and prepared for missions they couldn't yet imagine. The recruits who'd once tormented her now served in units around the globe, carrying lessons they didn't fully understand, but instinctively trusted. They moved with unconscious competence, learned from watching someone who made the impossible look routine. Sometimes in the quiet moments between operations, they would remember the woman who'd endured their cruelty with infinite patience, who'd revealed her true nature only when circumstances demanded it, who taught them that true strength often wears the mask of apparent weakness. The ghost cadet was gone, but her legacy lived on in the warriors she'd helped forge from raw recruits who thought they knew what courage looked like. They'd learned better. Never judge the quiet ones. They might be the most dangerous people you'll ever meet, waiting patiently for the moment when their silence transforms into something far more powerful than words. In a world obsessed with flash and showmanship, Olivia's story stands as a reminder that the greatest warriors often hide in plain sight, indistinguishable from ordinary people, until the moment when ordinary simply isn't enough. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit like and subscribe to HL Stories. That's how you help us continue bringing you untold tales of courage, sacrifice, and the hidden heroes walking among us.